Hello, everyone, and welcome to Benoit Changes the Piano Hammers. This was a project that was a long time coming, and because of scheduling, I had to do it in two different occasions, so two different shots. Like I had to change the hammers one day and do a very rough regulation. I had a recording session with the opera the next day, and then the following day, the Sunday, I had a whole day to actually do a proper regulation. So the first thing to do, of course, is to take the action out of the piano, and that's it's a little awkward, it's a little heavy, but once set up in the lobby, essentially what I had to do was to I was going to change the bass section first. You can see here the state of the old hammers, and then in the foreground actually are new hammers just sitting on the table, waiting to be installed. And so you can see here the treble ones. You can clearly see the ridges left by the strings in, because those hammers that were a few years old. So here I am, so changing the hammers of the bass section, and it's not a very difficult part of the project, actually, except that you have to figure out eventually if the hammers travel in like vertically in a straight line. So that's what I'm doing here, making sure that they're not hitting the other hammers while they go up. So it's a very gross traveling correction. And so that's what I'm doing. And eventually, once I did the entire bass section, then I put the piano back. Here are a few of the tools that I used. Actually, some of the wood, like the wooden handles you see, that those are homemade tools for the regulation. So because I can either not wait or not afford those tools. And life goes on. People call me. I have to answer the phone. But here I am in the piano, like just basically finding, like lining up the hammers and seeing if the travel is decent. And then I set up in the music room to change the rest of the hammers, which is what I'm doing right now. That took like a few hours, a couple of hours, I guess. And then eventually I have to do the travel properly. So here I am, like putting traveling paper or like very thin strips of painter's tape to make sure that like the hammers can travel vertically. It's fine to notice if they're traveling, or to figure out if they're traveling straight, but then you have to fix it if they're not, and that's the way you do it. And here I'm just basically setting a very basic hammer line, so that I can eventually start doing the line up the hammers to the strings in the piano, which is what I'm gonna do next. So here I am working on the traveling on the upper strings. So here I am checking the traveling. So you take a section and of hammers, and then you just pull them up with a something straight, and then you see which ones are going towards the next hammer or not. If they're not, if they're staying parallel, that's a good thing. And so once that's done, I put the action back in the piano, and then I'm gonna do a rough line up of the hammers on the strings, because no matter how good they look on the action when it's out of the piano, you have to line them up. So that's what I'm doing now. Basically, I did not tighten them super tight, and so I can take a flat screwdriver and just kind of nudge them one way or the other until they line up exactly where they're supposed to be, which is for the triple strings, 1 millimeter left. Like there should be 1 millimeter of hammer left of the left string. That is the way it's supposed to look. So that when you press the soft pedal, it shifts the action rightward a few millimeters, and then it misses that string. That's the point of the soft pedal. So I brought the action outside to blow it, because it was, there was a few years worth of dust in there. It was actually surprising the amount of dust that was stuck in the action. But anyhow, after this, it was thoroughly clean. And then I basically brought it back. I tuned the piano, I put it back, and then the next day, this is what I did. I set up in the kitchen, because you have to be on a very, very flat, level surface, and that's the flattest surface in the house is the granite table in the kitchen. And so I could start working on the fine regulation. And so I had to take a few weapons out to fix a few issues with the jacks and stuff. So that's what I'm doing here. And while I was doing that, I was lubricating the action with very, very fine Teflon or PTFE powder. You can see like the microphone stand right now. I had two very short microphone stands with extensions like on them. You're gonna see I put a level on there, and that was my workbench. So the first step on the regulation is to check the key height. So that's what I'm doing here. I was putting these little pieces of paper underneath the front rail, or for that's for the dip actually, but for the height, it's in the middle rail. Right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm adjusting the height of the keys. And then the next step is to check the dip, which is what I'm doing now. So how far they go down once you press it. So I have a homemade gauge. It's 10.1 millimeters thick exactly. So this way I could check to be sure that every key depresses the same distance, which is the recommended distance by the manufacturer. Then this way it gives me a chance to have, like if I do the hammer line properly, or the hammer blow, what it's called, then I can do the let off and the drop, which is the last. That's what I'm doing now. So I'm doing the let off, which is the very highest point that the hammer reaches when you press it very, very slowly. And then eventually the jack releases, and it drops, the note drops down, and it's ready to repeat with the repeat action. And once I did the entire action, I lubricated everything. So now you can see that everything's been lubricated with the powder, every single joint or hinge in the piano. And that was left after I was done on the kitchen table. It was not a wild party. It was the PTFE powder left underneath the action. And then I went outside to blow all the excess powder out of the action, put the action back in, made sure everything was lined up, and I actually had to fix a few let off and drops because sometimes at the string it's not exactly like your workbench. It's real life and it has to be adapted. And then essentially, that's it. I tuned the piano, and we had a session the very next day with the opera, and it worked fine. So I can't wait for everyone to hear it. It sounds great, and all I have to do now is very fine work on the on a few hammers. And I'm going to ask my friend Paul Williams, the best piano tech in town, who's taught me to do all this stuff, so that he can do that, because I'm not going to shave my own hammers. I do some voicing, but to voice them down, but to voice them up, I cannot do that. He can. He has the expertise and the experience to do that. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked this video. Just press the like button if you did, and I hope to see all of you, when it's safe to do so, at Timucua very, very, very soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.